In this first scene, in the opening lines of the play, Shakespeare plunges us in medias res, that is to say, into the midst of things. And the midst of the world into which we are plunged is a world which is preoccupied with identity, much as Hamlet is, and his many identities and his ability to mimic all around him. But also we're introduced to the state of Denmark. What we immediately pick up here is that it's a world of suspicion. It is also, on the political level, a state that is on a war footing. So we now meet the guards who are about to replace each other. They even have passwords to make sure that they are on the same side. Long live the king. Long live the king is a password, but also it's long live the king. You all know that expression perhaps, the king is dead, long live the king. We are also at a stage of transition. Bernardo, you could argue, is longing for a kind of stability that the world around him is not going to give him. Other ways of introducing that loyalty is when Francisco meets Horatio for the first time, and they actually ask him, is that Horatio? And he says, a piece of him. I'm quite interested in that line, as you probably imagine, because I'm interested not only in individuals, such as Hamlet, but also dividuals, those moments when people are selves in their own right, but also their properties are at the disposal of the state. It's important that everyone is at the disposal of the state, because we have such lines as who is there, a repetition of that complaint about identity, that desperate, very open, repeated question. And the answer that Horatio gives in line 20 is friends to this ground, and Marcellus, who's with him, says, and liegemen to the Dane. Now, in the background of this scene, you need to bear in mind that they do begin to talk about the spectral presence of the ghost. The ghost is not named. There is a kind of silence about it. You could call it praeteritio. They're doing a lot without actually mentioning the name. And when they do eventually mention the name, spoiler, in the next passage, they will say that it is, they say, looks not alike the king. Now, they're referring to the old king there. You can say, as Emma Smith does, section B, that this is a play full of nostalgia, that the idea of the old king is almost interchangeable with the new one, and a very different sort of king he was, as we'll see when we look at subsequent passages. Anyhow, we are now looking at a scene overall where minor characters hold the stage. These people will appear in other guises later on, but you'll notice just metrically the very rapid exchange of iambic pentameter and sometimes not iambic pentameter. So who's there? Nay, answer me. Stand and unfold yourself. So nay, answer me, stand and unfold yourself is iambic pentameter, but this line, who's there, is what we call hypermetric. So it goes beyond and above the rhyming, the rhythm, the metrical system. Just to reinforce our remarks about the air of suspicion, look at this. You come most carefully upon your hour. Bearing in mind how cold it is, this is a bit rude, isn't it? You come most carefully upon your hour, saying, yeah, you've come exactly at the stroke of 12. You could have arrived a little bit sooner if you cared about me going to bed. It is now struck 12, get thee to bed, Francisco. So there are now, and for this relief, much thanks. You can see actually a kind of verbal thawing here, as well as just the possibility of an actual more metaphorical one. There is as well the quiet before the storm, not a mouse stirring, and the storm, when Horatio arrives, they feel that they can talk about the apparition. So there is a kind of nervousness, not just about the possibility of spies from, say, Norway, but also now the supernatural. We're looking at a world where the other is either something beyond this world or just beyond our border. So linking the kind of state of Denmark also with a kind of spiritual state, as if those are the two worlds of the play. In conclusion, we can note the range of questions, the air of suspicion, the two different worlds, the interchanging of lines, the back and forth between minor characters, the introduction of Horatio, or at least a little part of Horatio. We call this, by the way, metonymy, where a part of somebody is represented, where the whole of somebody is represented by a little bit of them. Something that we do when we say, at least we've got a roof over our heads, or at least we've got we've got a new motor. We can go anywhere. We've got a new set of wheels. That kind of thing. So Horatio in the dark is presented by a little part of him. In fact, it's worth looking at a note that Harold Jenkins writes about that. He writes, and I quite like this, the skeptic, the skeptical Horatio is already characterised by his tone of humorous deflation. That he's got a kind of wry, contemptus mundi, seen it all before. Well, you might not have all of me, but at least here's my hand. So you can see that there's a lot held back, both the name, the identity of the ghost, both the full commitment of the minor characters to the cause of Denmark, and also there's the dramatic delay of the ghost's appearance.